This is a review for The Art of Sea of Thieves, and despite the fact that it was one of the more disappointingly underwhelming games I've ever played, I'm glad it came out, if for no other reason than it means we got this really great art book. Because there are not enough pirate-themed art books. In fact, I don't think there are enough pirate-themed anythings, but especially art books. In fact, the only two really notable ones that spring to mind are the art of Assassin's Creed Black Flag and the art book for the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. And I think it's really interesting to compare this book to those two, just because this book scratches an itch that those two weren't able to. They're both fantastic books, but personally I wasn't a big fan of the art direction, because with the concept art in the Assassin's Creed Black Flag book, it's conveying more of a somber atmosphere and lighting. But even more to the point, it uses an art style that you see a lot of in concept art that I'm not a big fan of, which is a very sort of almost impressionistic, vague digital sketches that aren't particularly illustrative or well rendered. And so they clearly were going for something of a more moody and realistic look, which as an art direction is fine, that's great. Personally, that wasn't really what I was looking for, but this Art of Sea of Thieves book is the complete opposite of that, and exactly what I've been hoping for in a sort of pirate-themed art book. It's this rather colourful, fun, cartoony, tropical pirate adventure, and for an art book I just find that so much more visually appealing. You're getting more of those sapphire skies and the aqua water and emerald foliage, and a lot of rather flamboyant and caricatured pirates running around. And I mean, there are also pieces that are a bit dark or a little more overcast or drab, but even these are often injected with some sort of color, or even if it's just the more fun, slightly exaggerated shapes and things they're using are a lot more visually engaging and exciting to me than something like the more melancholy feel of Assassin's Creed. And surprisingly, even the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy art book, I felt, despite, having a lot of sort of fantastical elements, the actual art styles, I felt, lent a little bit more towards realism. And I mean, I'm sure there are people who look at this and say, oh, this is just cartoon kiddie nonsense, and that's fine. You'll probably be more appreciative of the Black Flag art book, and I can appreciate that. It's not that I like realistic or cartoon better or worse than the other, it's just all different styles and art direction. There's no right or wrong answer. But for people who do like this more cartoony style, I think the visual appeal is absolutely undeniable, and that for me is what really drew me to the game, and definitely again to this art book. Although on that note, the only sort of criticism I had, which is really inconsequential, is I'm not a big fan of the cover at all. I mean, the piece, the actual artwork itself is great. I just don't think it's a very good choice for the cover, because it's not showcasing. Like, if you had this sort of front-facing on a shelf with a dozen other books, I don't think it really jumps out in the way that it deserves to. It's too dark. There's not that sort of... It doesn't really take advantage of any of those things that I praised about the art direction for this game. I think it would have been more representative of the game and the book to include, something that really announces this as a wonderfully fun pirate tropical adventure. But if you're watching this video, obviously the cover doesn't really matter, because that's what the flip through is for. Also, you may have noticed as we're going through that there is some text throughout the book, but really there's nothing to say about that. It's supposed to be, I guess, like commentary. Who it's from, I don't know, but it's really not even worth mentioning. I mean, I really wish that the text was good, but frankly, as it is, you could get rid of all the text in this book and it wouldn't make a difference. And really, this is the only major letdown in the book. And I was actually really surprised and delighted that this game even got an art book, because it doesn't really seem like the sort of game that would get a full independent art book release. So I'm really glad it did. And I've been a very harsh critic of some of the things that Dark Horse, the publisher of this book, has done with their books in the past. Although one thing that I've always said is that physically they make excellent books, and this one's no exception. The size of the book, the weight of the pages, the number of pages, it has a really great physical feel, like all of Dark Horse's books tend to do. Although before I actually started reading it, the one thing I was concerned about was, because the major criticism leveled against the game is that there was not enough content, and so I was wondering if that meant that if there's not a lot of content, maybe they didn't produce a lot of art, and therefore this art book would be quite skimpy. But I am so happy to say that, surprisingly, this is not an issue at all. This book is packed with stuff. Like, again, just to compare it to the Assassin's Creed Black Flag art book, this book probably has like 3 or 4 times as many pieces of art as that one does. And in a time when even some of the best games with the best art direction, with the best quality art, come out with books that you really feel like you're only getting, 1 or 2 images per page, and the rest is just either blank space or they're too large or whatever. And then to be able to have a game like Sea of Thieves generate enough art, generate enough high quality art, that it can bring an art book like this to the table that far outshines many other video game art books in terms of the quality and quantity of images on display. I mean, sometimes there is a sense of a lot of repetition in the designs that you're seeing. I do think, given the expansive, fertile, imaginative ground that is the pirate theme, there could have been more variety in just terms of like the content of what exists in this world, although obviously that is also the major criticism of the game as well. And in fact, for a few years now, Dark Horse has supposed to have been publishing a company art book on Rare, which I'm very much looking forward to and hoping is still in the works. But in the meantime, for Sea of Thieves fans, or just fans of pirates in general, they actually released quite a great little collection of different books to tie into this game. In addition to this art book, there is also a graphic novel and a prose novel. I haven't read either of those, so I'm not sure how good they are, but they exist. And then there's another book called Tales from the Sea of Thieves, but I won't tell you about that one here because it will be getting its own review very soon.